So guys, in this video, we're talking about the 5 financial mistakes that I made in my 20s, guys. This is gonna be a painful one, so bear with me. I got myself a little glass to help me through the journey because listen, some of these mistakes, I'm still kind of, looking after them in my 30s. So let's get to it. So the first mistake that I need you to avoid is buying or leasing a car as soon as you start making some money. I'm watching you and I know you're about to buy that car or lease that car. Don't do it, guys. And I watch a couple of these videos, right, to just get an idea, and it seems to come up a lot, right? As soon as you start making some money, you think to yourself, let me buy that car, because I feel like when you have a car or a nice car, a car you've always wanted, it's almost like a physical representation that, okay, I've made it. Exactly what I did. As soon as I started making some money, my first 30K plus job, I went out to get a CLA Mercedes-Benz, right? We show people that I'm making money. And half the time, the people that you're trying to impress, one, don't care about these things. Two, what tends to happen is that a lot of people start to envy you as well. You get this wrong attention from people that you don't really care about. I had a monthly payments, which is about £400. And this time, I'm only taking home, 2K plus. So it made no financial sense to have this, and it's frankly very, very stupid, right? And on top of that, what happened was I actually lost my job at the time. So I had a car for a couple years, maybe a year or two. Then within that 2 years, I lost my job. So now I'm left with this car that I have to make car payments for, and I don't have a stable income, so I had to give the car back. And one thing I didn't realize is once you terminate your contract early when it comes to these finances, it can have a negative, stain on your credit. So because of that negative stain, other things in the future, for example, buying my house, for example, became more expensive. To borrow money or to have a mortgage, you need to make sure that there's no stains in your credit file. If there is, you just have a bit more of an expensive mortgage, which happened to me. Something like that, something so silly and minute, like, having a nice car is now affecting me now, right? Which is crazy to think about. As there's no point buying this car, wait until you're in a better position financially, where you've made some investments, where you're in a good position in life, then, you can indulge yourself in a nice car and the nice things, eventually will come. But I feel like when you're younger, it's better to build up, equity in terms of your finances, guys. Build up your investments. That's way more important than showing off to people that frankly don't care about you. Okay. Second mistake that I made in my 20s, right, is not having multiple forms of income sooner. Okay. I think this ties in with the last, example with the Benz. If I had, extra income sources, I wouldn't have been in that position. I believe I was too comfortable having one source of income. Kind of ties in with living at home. I was very comfortable when I was living at home because the income source that I had kind of sustained me. If I had moved out quicker, put more pressure on me to kind of develop these income sources a lot quicker. So not saying that staying at home is bad, because me staying at home allowed me to kind of accumulate and save money to be able to put towards purchasing a home, for example. So it wasn't all bad, but I do also think that sometimes when you've moved out early, you're more inspired to be able to make more income because you have more pressure on you. So it's a bit of a balance, and I think it's up to you to find the right solution for that balance. It's mandatory that you have multiple forms of income. It's crazy to me that people only survive with one form of income, especially now that we're going through a cost of living crisis, for example. You need multiple forms of income, and I think this channel especially, I'm going to be talking about the different sources of income that I'm into, or I'm kind of aspiring to be having in the future, and I'm going to be sharing that with you guys. So the third financial mistake that I made in my 20s, not maintaining an absolutely perfect credit. Okay, my credit has not been terrible, but those little blips that I mentioned earlier on, just made certain purchases way more expensive than it needed to be, i.e. my house, right? Something you have to realize when it comes to actually, borrowing money for big purchases like a mortgage is that they really scrutinize your past behaviors and your past credit files and your past activities in your credit file, for example. So if it's not perfect, they take that opportunity to actually charge you more money on top of what you're already paying. So for example, if your house is meant to be, let's say, 1% interest, because you have a stain in your credit, you might end up paying 2% or 3%, which if you look at it in respect to now, it's actually a very good rate. But back then, having a 3% mortgage was, actually a terrible mortgage. I had to, fork out a lot more for my deposit. Also put a lot more monthly payments for the repayments towards the interest and so on and so forth. So guys, just make sure, I know sometimes it can be difficult, but just make sure there's not any stains in your credit file in your 20s. Use this time to build up your credit to make sure you have impeccable credit. So when it comes to later on down the line, when you're making certain purchases like a house, for example, you're not overcharged for monthly payments and so on and so forth. Guys, it's so important. The fourth mistake that I made in my 20s, and I wouldn't really class as a mistake, it was more of an opportunity cost, and I would say that is not getting into tech sales right earlier on. So sales right now, I'm in something called pharmaceutical sales, and getting into pharmaceutical sales was very natural for me because I've always been passionate about science and business, and mixing those two together was the perfect blend for me right outside university because I studied biomedical science. But when I got into sales, I began to realize that there's lots of different aspects of sales that you can get into, one being tech sales. And I think sales is wonderful because life is sales. You're either selling or you're being sold to. So really beginning to understand the psychology behind human behavior, why we do things, you really learn that quickly from sales. But my mistake was not getting into tech sales earlier on, right? I love pharmaceutical sales, but when I began to see some of the amounts that these people in tech sales make, it's unbelievable. You're basically making a CEO salary at the age of, let's say, 26, for example. So I think, that is the one thing that I would have got into leaving university. But, I've done pretty well doing what I do. But I would say if you are, leaving university, and you're thinking about sales, tech sales is one of the things that I would definitely look into. And I'll be bringing, friends that are in tech sales to kind of speak to you guys around how to get into tech sales, how it works. The fifth and final mistake that I made in my 20s was not starting investment within the stock market a lot sooner. Once I actually broke it down, if I, let's say, started investing £200 or $200 within the stock market every month from the age of 18, in the S&P 500, for example, I would have like 20 to 30,000 pounds just sitting there, and this amount might not seem like a lot, but if you let that amount compound from now going forward, man, you can have like 300,000 in your account by the time you hit 65, and that's retirement money. So I think that's something that I should have thought about a lot earlier on. I guess, I can't really, beat myself down a lot because most of the time when you're 18, you're not really thinking about investments and stuff like that. But, it's just something that I just wish I would have started a lot sooner. And it's something that right now is a big driver of my, investing in stocks, investing in, other things like crypto and everything else. It's very key. So that is the one where I would say if you're 20 years old currently, really start looking at ways to invest your money long term, rather than just wasting them and blowing it. I guess I've not done so bad because obviously I've invested in other things like property, but I think investing in stocks and shares it's something I should have thought about a lot earlier on. Those are the 5 mistakes that I made. I hope you've taken some lessons from this, because this is basically what I would tell my 20-year-old self. All these mistakes to avoid financially. This is exactly what I would say to my 20-year-old self. So I hope you take it all in, and you've taken some notes, because yeah, it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than make them yourself, right? So these are my mistakes, so utilize them and avoid these mistakes at all cost. So guys, thank you for watching this video, and yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.